Let's look at the concept of demand and marginal revenue for a monopolist a little more in depth. I've used the same chart here as in the previous video. And that chart shows that as the quantity goes up, or in order to sell a larger quantity, which would be happening here, the firm has to lower their price. So in order to sell more, they have to charge a lower price. And because they have to charge a lower price on all units that they sell, in other words, they have a choice between these different combinations, then the marginal revenue is always going to be less than demand. And we can see that in this area here. If we graph that, then we have now a separate demand curve that shows price, average revenue, and demand, and a different marginal revenue curve. Now the marginal revenue curve can even be negative, because sometimes lowering the price means that we take less revenue and we don't even sell enough units to make up for that. So there's a certain point where the monopolist, if it lowered its price to sell more, would actually end up with less total revenue. Now that should sound a little bit more familiar. If the price goes down and total revenue goes down, that's a statement about elasticity of demand. So if we look at this graph, we can draw a point right here where the quantity where marginal revenue is 0. This whole area prior to that quantity is where demand is elastic. The point that I have drawn here would be unit elastic, and then everything beyond that point would be the inelastic portion of the demand curve. Is there any reason why a firm would produce in the inelastic portion of its demand curve? Well, no, because the firm is always going to produce where MR equal MC. And since cost would always have to be a positive number, then the intersection between marginal cost and marginal revenue could never occur in this area of the graph. Let's take another look at the total revenue along with marginal revenue to see exactly how this works. So here's our demand curve again. And I have on the bottom just the graph we looked at before. And on the top, we're looking at a graph of total revenue. So note that the axis here is a little bit different. This is our total revenue. For the whole area of the marginal revenue curve in which marginal revenue is positive, an increase in quantity means that total revenue is going up. After all, if we increase our quantity and we have some additional revenue coming in, our total revenue must be rising. For the other point, after the point where marginal revenue becomes negative, total revenue must be falling. This is another version of a graph we've seen at other times in the course with regard to profits, total product, and so on. But the point here is that as long as marginal revenue is positive, lowering the price to increase quantity is going to increase total revenue. If marginal revenue is negative, then lowering the price and increasing the quantity is actually going to reduce revenue.